Hey everybody, it's Andy from EX2 Adventures. I'd like to give you an update on the 2024 Rails to River mountain bike course. So I'm going to cover a couple different things in this video. I want to first cover the reasons why we're making change to the course. Second thing, I was going to go over the original course just to sort of give you the lay of the land and understand kind of what's changing. And then I'll go over the new course with you. So first and foremost, we've been tracking a stream restoration project for several months now. We started actively engaging with the park back in February to understand what the implications to the race course were going to be. And we've been watching it really closely on the ground to see how the construction is evolving. So just to give you a lay of the land, so this is the large pavilion where we normally start the race. This is the large cricket field that you go through in the beginning and the end of the race. Just to the west of the cricket field, you have this stream valley that runs from the neighborhoods over here all the way basically into Colvin Run. This section of the stream valley here is undergoing major restoration. What that basically means is that there is protection fencing on both sides of the creek bed. They've been putting large decking, wood decking down so they can drive the big construction equipment through the woods, basically. They've been taking trees down to allow those big trucks to pass through. There's protective wood structures along the trees that they're going to keep. And they've also really closed this whole section of trail here. So this is really, even as far back as here, this trail's closed. And then Cliffhanger's all closed. And then these crossings here are all closed. So we've known this for a while. We've been working with the park to try to figure out how much of the original race course we could use and what we couldn't. We've known for some time now that this major crossing right here was a no-go for the race. There's some major culverts they installed in it, like some major dirt. It's like an 8-foot drop down to the creek bed, and there's like a wood bridge across it. So we knew this intersection was a no-go. The original plan was to take the course as much as intact as possible and go through the cricket field and then go down Cliffhanger and then access the course here and do basically the loop. And then when we get back through the luge, we can't go back across here because this is really closed. But we were going to make this basically two-way. So you go back this way into the finish. The issues with that that we've been tracking is that there's a couple places where that wood decking is blocking the trail, and they have some fencing blocking the trail. We went down the road of asking the county to see what it would take to move that. And we actually, it took a long time, but we actually did get some approvals to make that happen. It was going to come with a very significant expense. And that was one reason that I chose not to go that route. The other things at play here is that it's an active construction zone. And one thing that I've been observing over the last couple of weeks is that it's changing. I'll give you a good example. There is, in the very beginning of the course, after you make this right-hand turn, there's a pretty significant S-turn. Literally in that S-turn, right before it was going to cross one of the sections of decking, there's like a whole bunch of surveyor's stakes, like literally right in the middle of the trail. And what that pointed out to me is that, and reminded me that this is very much an active construction zone. And so my fear became, well, what's going to happen between now and race day that's not in my control and not in our team's control. And it was starting to get, be on my mind a lot. The other thing that's at play here is that if the county removed that decking, it's still kind of going through an active construction zone. So there is some additional risk there. Although we can mitigate a lot of it by removing that decking. But again, it was several $1,000s to remove that decking. The third thing is I've been watching the long-term forecasts like I always do. And granted, we're pretty far away from the race. But there is some sort of front maybe coming through the area next weekend. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to rain. I have no idea. But if, for example, we have to postpone because of rain, it looks like it's going to be like, it would be like a last minute decision. It doesn't look like there's a long-term forecast for like 10 days of rain. But it looks like something's going to be going through. And if the timing's wrong, it could potentially postpone the event, just like any of our mountain bike races. Well, if we have all that decking removed, they would do it Friday afternoon before the race. And if I have to postpone, it's likely going to be like a Saturday or Sunday early in the morning thing because of the rain that sort of that came to be. If we have to postpone, they've already removed the decking, and they're just going to have to do it again for like the postponement date, which I don't want to go down that road. It's a lot to ask the county to do. honestly a very, very large financial expense, and we still are going through this active construction zone, which who knows how it's going to change over the next month. So you put all this stuff together, and for a while I've had several different backup plans. There was a little bit of a delay with the county to getting our final approvals, and I actually didn't have them until yesterday. But I really, really started seriously considering the backup option earlier this week, and I spent a lot of time sort of honing that in and making a really solid, good backup plan, and that's what we're going to go with. So let me explain again how the course was and then how it's going to change. And so originally I put out the videos that we were going to sort of start the race in the large pavilion, go through the cricket fields, and then come back down Cliffhanger around, and then continue the course. And then when you go back through, you go down the luge, and this was going to be the turnaround point originally. However, this whole section of trail now is going to be inaccessible. We're basically coming from the large pavilion over the cricket field, so we can't really get over here safely and in a fun way. So what I've decided to do is move the start and the finish of the race. And so I'm going to move the finish and start up to the Pavilion G, which is at the very entrance of the park, which is off this map, and I'll show you another map in a second. But what I want to point out to you is that basically this whole section of the course, from the bottom of the luge east through the cricket field over the large pavilion, is no longer in the course. Now the turnaround point, the lap point for the sport and the expert course, is at the bottom of the trail going through the campground right before you go over the wood bridge here. So this part, very northern part of the course. This is now the lap point. Now you might say, well, where's the start and finish? The start and finish is across the bridge up this trail here. And again, I'm going to show you the map here in a second. So just know that this section over, again, to the east of the bottom of the luge is no longer in play. And I'm adding some stuff to the northern part of the course here. All right, so let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to post all this stuff up on the website. It'll be there by the time you see this video. So now we're starting. This is the entrance to the park. This is Baron Cameron. This is the main entrance to the park here. Immediately on the right-hand side is Pavilion G. Watermine Water Park, if you're familiar, is right here. Plenty of parking, and there's a large pavilion here. We are going to start the race at this pavilion. This is a gravel road that has a slight downhill and then a pretty significant uphill, not too different from the uphill that's it's a little bit shorter, not as long as the one we normally use, but it is an uphill. Then the course is going to go up and do several S-turns, similar to the way you'd start a cyclocross race to kind of create some spacing in the field of riders. And then it's going to continue on, hit a double track section, and then it connects to a gravel road, which is down and then up a little bit, and then a downhill crossing over the wood bridge, and then you're on the course. So this whole section here is brand new for this year, and it's going to be two-way, meaning the race is going to start this way, and at the end of the first lap, if you're doing the base course, or at the end of your second lap if you're doing the sport, or the end of your third lap if you're doing the expert, you're going to come back the exact same way. The only difference is when you approach the finish, instead of going straight up this gravel road, there's this little grass hill here, because of course I got to make you go up a grass hill. And you're going to curve around and then go through the finish line, and our arch and everything's going to be there. And then everything is here. All the post-race party stuff, beer, all the stuff is right in this pavilion. All right, so let me go over the course after sort of like the little prologue area. So if you remember, the original course, we had, so this is all taken out. This is where the course originally went. The lap point, as originally designed, last year, previous years, was always down by the large pavilion. So you used to go through that large pavilion area at the end of your second lap, third lap if you're doing, and at the finish. When we were thinking about changing it originally, we thought we were going to make the end of the luge the lap point, meaning that's where you'd sort of turn around and then come to the finish. But however, since we're not using all this stuff over here, now the end of your lap point is as you go down the trail, go through the campground area, which is up here, and then right before you go over a wood bridge here, there's a hard left. That is going to be the lap point. Now, what that means is that for the base course, you're going to be doing the start, go out and do the whole course, which is largely basically the same as it always has been. When you finish the luge, instead of going right, which you did originally, or straight like we were going to do, now you take a hard left and continue back up through the soccer fields, go through the campground, and then down that hill to the bridge. If you're doing one lap, you just go straight. So you go straight across the bridge, up the hill, loop back around into the finish. If you're doing the sport course, which is 2 laps, the first time you go down this hill and you come to this left-hand turn, you make a left and you do everything again. So all the way around, all the way around. The second time you come to this point, then you go straight. You go across the bridge, up the hill, into the finish. If you're doing the expert race, you make this left-hand turn twice. So you start the race, go do a full loop, come all the way back around. The first time you get there, take a left, do the whole loop again. Second time you get there, take a left. Third time you get there, you continue straight, and then your race is finished. The new distances, the base course is about 7.5 miles. The sport course comes in about 13.5 miles, and the expert race comes in about 19.5 miles. Because we lost a little bit of distance, I did make one change sort of like in the middle of the course, and that is, and the new distance right around mile 3.3-ish. This is on the Rails to River where it crosses this main creek in the park. Previous years, we've gone up a little hill, and then headed uphill on a trail that parallels the new downhill route that was built a couple years ago, and then you head on to Genberg and continue around. This time, we're going to go across the creek and stay straight on Rails to River. This is like largely a double track, super fast, fun section. And then you're going to make a hard right and go up on the hillside trail and then connect to Southside, which again is the trail that parallels the downhill route. And then connect to Genberg. So by adding this little loop here, it adds about a half mile to each lap. That helps make up some of the distance we lost because we cut off some of the old stuff. So that's the course. So the big, huge differences is that we're now starting out of Pavilion G, which is again is right as you enter the park. The start of the race is going to be different, but it does have a gravel climb to start, and then a couple S-turns to space out the field. And then when you come to this gravel road, the other thing that's going to be you have to be careful of is this is a pretty good downhill gravel section, crossing a bridge, and then kind of not a sharp right turn, but a fairly soft right turn onto the single track. Second change is we're adding this half-mile loop in here. So that's new if you've done the race in the past. And then again, I think that the biggest change, again, besides the start, is instead of finishing over here, now this lap point is at the bottom of the trail that goes through the campground, right before that wooden bridge here. It's a hard left-hand turn. We're going to have lots of signage, lots of course marshals there, making sure people know what's going on. And again, if you're doing the base race, basically you just do a lap. So you start, go do the whole thing. When you get to this lap point, you just go straight and finish your race. Again, 7.5 miles. If you're doing the sport race, when you get to this downhill, the first time you take a left and do the whole lap again. The second time you get to this point, then you go straight and continue the race. If you're doing the expert race, you get to this point the first time, take a left. Get to this point the second time, take a left. The third time you get there, you continue straight. Now, for the people doing the sport and the expert race, the other thing that this impacts is your ability for aid. So again, the original course design is over in the large pavilion. That's where you went through. You went through like sort of like basically like a big aid station. You leave bottles and things like that. We are going to now have a larger aid station at the soccer fields. So this is about mile, let's see, it's about 4.7 or so on the way out. You're going to go through it again about a mile or so later, about 5.7. If you're doing the sport and expert race, you're going to go through this a whole bunch of times. So there'll be water, there'll be Gatorade. If you have any team members or anything that are supporting you in the race, they're more than welcome to come up in this section and kind of hang out and pass water bottles if you wanted to. That's totally fine. But that's, again, you should take that into consideration in your race plan if you're doing the sport race or the expert race. It's not a decision I take lightly to change a course. Trust me when I tell you we've been working on this and tracking it for many, many months and working really closely with all the powers that be in the county. But for all the reasons I said before, I really think this is the best course of action. It lets us control sort of what's going on versus having a lot of unknowns in that construction area. I really, really wanted to use as much of the original course as possible. But again, things have just been evolving, and I had this feel that it just wasn't going to work. And so, again, I decided to go with that alternate plan. I think it's going to be awesome. The other thing that this allows us is this stream restoration project is scheduled to go through the spring of next year. Like, it's a really major thing. So if, for example, next spring's race, if this is still going on and these trails are still closed, as long as this goes well this year, now we have a really solid plan for how to execute the race next year should these trails continue to be closed. Thank you so much for rolling with us as I put out these updates. This is my third update on what we're going to do. I'm really grateful for everybody's support of the race. Again, it's near and dear to my heart. I love Lake Fairfax, and I'm really confident that you're going to have an absolute blast. Again, not much of the course has changed. All the good stuff in the trail, in the course, is really still intact. We just had to modify that start and that finish to make sure everyone's safe, and we have basically a sustainable race plan going forward. We're looking forward to seeing everybody on Sunday, May 5th. Keep on being good together. Oh, course marking. I'm going to pre-mark all the turns on Monday. So if you want to get out to Lake Fairfax next week sometime and do some pre-riding, all the turns will have at least one arrow helping you to get around the course, including at the beginning here. So if you want to park at Pavilion G and start on this gravel road, there'll be enough course marking to kind of get you through and get you familiar with how the race is going to start and how it's going to finish. Again, thanks so much for all your support. I'm really, really grateful, and we are stoked for the 4th annual Rails to River XC mountain bike race.